All right, so I've got one final topic for review today, and that is imperatives. So what are imperatives? We can think of this impair, it's like imperial. So we can think of something ruled by like an emperor or a commander. So imperatives are about giving commands, issuing commands. So in English, this would be like, do your homework. Wash your hands. Don't go outside. We typically end these in an exclamation point, but you don't have to do that. Just gives it a little more oomph. So in German, the structure of these is basically going to be the same for all of them. However, there are some small differences based on who you're issuing the order to. So we've got a few options. We can issue the order to a du, like a du would be one person informal relationship. This one is pretty common. So if I want to say, for example, do your homework, what I'm going to do is consider the verb first. So we have the verb machen. To make, to do. Our conjugation of that for the du form, du machst. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at the conjugated du form and get rid of the ending. And that's going to go at the beginning of the sentence. So the word order of imperatives is going to be just like yes or no questions. So we'll have our verb first. In this case, we're going to omit our subject. So we'll have our verb and object. So we'll say, mach deine Hausaufgaben. Waschen, to wash. Say, du wäschst. So this is a weird one because it's technically an irregular verb because we're changing a to e. However, in irregular verbs where you're just changing one letter to the umlauted form of that letter, so we'll say in irregular verbs where you're only adding an umlaut, omit the umlaut in the imperative form. Fetch. Forgot the S there. And again, we're just going to drop that ending. So we're dropping the ending and we're dropping our umlauts. We'll say wasch. Deine Hände. Gehen, to go. Ich gehe, du gehst. So we're going to get rid of that ST again, just the ending. Say, geh nicht draußen. Oder geh nicht raus. That's like don't go out. Und say, geh nicht raus. Outside is draußen. And then I want to do one where it's an irregular, but one where you're making a bigger change than just adding an umlaut. So we can use lesen, for example, to read. Read your book. Here we could also say, wasch dir die Hände. So waschen is technically a reflexive verb. We haven't really talked about these, but what that means is that we have a pronoun in there. So like wash for yourself, the hands. That's something you'll learn more about next semester. Anyway, back to reading our book. So we'll say lesen. To read. Du liest. So here, the stem is actually lies and not just li. We're only adding a T when we conjugate that. So we'll say lies dein Buch. And notice for the possessives, we're always using that du form, because this form of imperatives is always going to be with the singular du. And with that, we can move on to the ihr form. So that is like y'all. So you're addressing multiple people. And this is still informal. So in this case, with the ihr imperatives, we're basically just going to conjugate our verb. And again, we're going to omit the subject in our imperative. And our word order is just like yes or no questions with the conjugated verb first. The conjugation is just functioning differently in the du form. So macht's. Ich mache, du machst, ihr macht, so macht eure Hausaufgaben. Do y'all's homework. Wascht, so ihr wascht euch die Hände. Oder wascht eure Hände. Geht, so ich gehe, du gehst, ihr geht nicht raus. Lest, so ich lese, du liest, ihr lest. Euer, let's say y'all's books. We don't have to be reading the same book. So lest eure Bücher. Then finally, we have the Sie form, which we talked about in class before the pandemic, and this is the easiest one of all. So for the Sie form, you're addressing either one person or multiple people. So we'll say one or more persons. And that fits our nice formal register. So one or more persons, formal setting. So this might be your boss telling you to do something. And for these, you're just going to conjugate with the Sie form and then add the Sie. So in this one, we're including the pronoun. That's what's distinct from the Du form and the Ihr form. So we can say machen Sie. So Sie machen, we're just reversing the order. Ihre Hausaufgaben. And this is the same way that we would structure a yes or no question. So like if I changed this to a question mark, machen Sie Ihre Hausaufgaben? Are you doing your homework? But no, we can put a period, we can put an exclamation point, and then it becomes a command. So waschen. Waschen Sie sich die Hände. Waschen Sie Ihre Hände. Gehen Sie nicht raus. Lesen Sie Ihr, let's consider it a singular here, there's only one book. Lesen Sie Ihr Buch. So that's pretty much how those work. Once you've learned the patterns, they're pretty straightforward. I mentioned this website in the previous video, verbformen.de. You can also look at imperatives on here. So I looked up the word fahren on here. And if I scroll down to imperative, we have the du form. The wir form we're not going to use in Netzwerker 1, but that's kind of like saying vámonos in Spanish. It's like let's go, let's drive, let's ride, like that song. So ihr fahrt. So we just say fahrt nach Berlin. Drive to Berlin. Fahren Sie nach Berlin. We're using these forms, and we're only including the pronoun in the Sie case and in the wir case, but we haven't talked about the wir case, and we're not going to need it for this semester. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or comments, and I'm going to put the notes for this along with the others in the Google Drive for the class. Und ich wünsche euch wieder viel Erfolg.